Hey everyone, welcome to another exciting episode of my Partridge Family collection. I have a great item to share with you today, and even my little puppy is excited. He's jumping for joy. I've been looking forward to sharing this item with you. If you were a kid in the 70s, you know this logo. It looks familiar, right? It's of course, it's the Colorforms logo. And there were some really cool Colorforms items in those days, in the mid 60s to mid 70s, I think was kind of like its heyday. Did you know that it's still going on today? 70 years and Colorforms is still going strong. You can go onto Amazon right now and buy Barbie Colorforms and the vintage Colorforms. Actually, it's really cool. And if you don't know the story of Colorforms, it's kind of cool. I'm not going to go into too much detail right now, but I will put a link onto the Colorforms website if you want to, if you're like, if you're a historian, you like to know more about vintage toys and things like that. It's a really cool story, actually. It was created by this couple. They were two art students. They were married in New York City in the early 50s, and they were experimenting with some different types of material at the time. And being art students in the early 50s, you can imagine it's probably very bohemian-ish. And they came across some very thin vinyl, like different colored vinyl, and they realized that if they cut them into shapes and they put them on certain surfaces, they kind of clinged. They kind of like stuck to the surfaces, and it was like kind of like a glossy surface that it would cling to. And they were thought, wow, this is really cool. And they actually, in their bathroom of their apartment in New York, they had some really cool wallpaper, and it was kind of a high gloss type of material. And they actually encouraged their guests. They would put like a pair of scissors and these rolls of very thin, colorful vinyl. And they encouraged their guests to kind of cut out geometrical shapes like triangles and circles and rectangles and squares and things like that. And cut them out and just put them on the bathroom wall when they went to the bathroom. So they would come up with this like really cool piece of artwork. And not to get into too much detail, that eventually morphed into like this game. They thought this would be a really cool learning tool for kids, to learn shapes and geometrical shapes. And that morphed into Colorforms, and they created this game. And they hired this artist to do the logo, and you could see in the logo the geometrical shapes, the square and the kind of half circle and the triangle. And that kind of stuck. That logo has been there since the mid 50s when they created Colorforms until today, like I said. And the most interesting thing I think about Colorforms is that they kept it in-house. So they didn't go out and hire a bunch of employees. They outsourced employees, and so I'm sure they made a ton of money, right, just doing that. And they had, like, I know they had an art director who they hired in like the mid 60s, and he stayed with them until like the mid 80s. And he was an outsource, he was a contractor, and they never hired him as a full-time employee, and he just made money off of residuals and stuff. So I'm sure he made a ton of money too. So they were really, really smart. And like in the mid 60s, they actually partnered with FAO Schwarz, the big toy store company, and the toy store companies sold Colorform packets to them. They also helped them get licensing, so they were able to do licensing with like Mattel. So they did Barbie Colorforms. Like, I remember the Weather Girl Colorforms kit. That was like the vintage where you dress her up in whatever the weather was. So if it was raining, you put her in a raincoat. If it was sunny, you put her in a bathing suit and things like that. And then they also did TV shows, and that was really big in the mid 60s to the mid 70s. They did like Family Affair. They did like Snoopy. They did Mother Goose. They did the Beatles. They did Batman. So they had like a great licensing program that they did. And one of the other great licensing that they got, of course, was, and I'm going to show this to you right now, this very cool David Cassidy Colorform set. And I actually have two, and I'll show you why I have two in a minute when we look at these a little bit closer. And I always kind of wondered why they did David Cassidy and not Susan Day, because Susan Day was kind of like the fashionista of the early 70s, right? She was a model, and and her fashions were really big on the Partridge Family. In fact, I kind of think it was probably because she had so many of the paper dolls. And in other words, there were a couple of different companies that did the paper dolls, and they were tied into Kate Greenaway, which did the Partridge Family clothing line. So I think maybe there was a little, I don't know, maybe there was a conflict there. So they ended up doing David Cassidy, which was great because, of course, he was like so popular in the 70s, in the early 70s, and we wanted to dress him up, right? He wore some cool clothes himself. A lot of times in the show, he repeated his fashions. I think the first season, he wore the same shirt for like the first 4 episodes. It was crazy. But anyway, so I'm really excited to show these to you. I do have 2 sets, and I'll show you why I have 2 sets as we dive deeper into it. And so let's take a closer look at this very cool. I would imagine it's a vintage toy, right? It's produced like in the 70s and early 70s. So let's take a closer look at something that I'm really excited to have in my collection, which is the David Cassidy dress-up set by Colorforms. One of my favorite toys as a kid, of course. I remember when I got it for Christmas, it was like fantastic. And so let's take a closer look at this vintage toy, bring back some great memories. All right, so here is the David Cassidy dress-up set by Colorforms, and it's my understanding that it came out in 1972. Of course, that was the heyday of the Partridge Family. Partridge Family started in 1970, the TV show, and then ran into 1974. So 1972 is right in the sweet spot of the David Cassidy phenom, right? David Cassidy mania, as it were. And Colorforms, of course, took advantage of that or leveraged that. So let's take a look at the box first, and then we'll take a peek inside. So the Partridge Family, David Cassidy dress-up set. Love David, of course. The big picture of David Cassidy, and that got everybody's attention. I remember when I unwrapped this at Christmas time in 1972, and I was like so excited to have this. A little cartoon image of the Partridge Family. And then, of course, like we were saying, the Colorforms logo, a Colorforms toy. And there you have little... By the way, the logo of the Colorforms has a name. His name is Charlie. I guess the C, right, stands for Charlie and plus Colorforms. And then you can see the geometrical shapes like we were talking about. The square, the half circle, the triangle. That's the Colorforms logo. Mid-50s until today, over 70 years, the Colorforms logo has been in play. It's never changed. So awesome. And of course this is, now you can dress up David Cassidy in his fabulous Colorforms wardrobe. So great. I'm going to take a look at the side of the box here. And again, just a little Partridge Family logo. I don't know if you can see that. Of course, they have to have that there. There's trademarked. And the licensing, of course, commissioned by Colorforms. Like at the time, like I said, 1972, they were owned by Colorforms. They weren't owned by, I'm sure Hasbro and Mattel and all these big toy companies wanted to get a piece of this, but Colorforms and this married couple, stayed with their own brand. And then David Cassidy, the dress-up set, Colorforms toy. And then the same, I think on every side it's the same. There you go. And the big David Cassidy mug, as you were. And this is, I would consider this a near mint. I mean, I'm not a professional collector or vintage toy collector by any means, but I'll show you why I think this is a near mint. Of course, the box is kind of dented in certain areas. You can see it's not completely mint, the box, but you can see it's got some cellophane here. The outside is just regular cardboard, but it's not cellophaned all the way. But if we lift it up here, it's cellophane on the inside here. So never been opened. I think that's considered mint, don't you? I mean, I don't know. Like I said, I'm not a professional toy collector. I'm not a vintage toy expert, but this has never been opened. It's never been touched other than by the manufacturers. And you can kind of get an idea, but you have like a little booklet in here to show you how to dress him up and some of his outfits that it's, again, never been opened. It's completely sealed, and I kept it sealed because I don't know. I think it's worth more when it's sealed. Not that I'm out to sell this collection, but I think it's pretty cool. So, as you can imagine, I really want to look at the inside. I really want to like dress up David Cassidy. Not that I really want to play with it, you know, as an adult, but I do kind of want to take a deeper dive into this. So this is why I acquired another set. So let's take a look at the other set that I have. This one looks like it's been through the ringer. It's not as mint as the other one. I think that we could probably, if you were even to look at them side by side, the mint one is, you know, the color's different. This is a better, obviously, better conditioned one. But I like this one. It's not that in a great condition. You can probably get these on eBay or, you know, or wherever you get your collectibles. I'm sure you can pick up one that's in not great condition like this one. It's not great. The box is all kind of jacked up a little. It looks like it's got some mildew on it. It's been years and years in a closet, squashed by other games and toys. Kind of coming apart here. I think you probably could pick this up for like about 40 bucks, I would imagine. Something like this in this kind of condition. But the reason I got this one is because we're able to look inside of it. And I think that that's the fun thing about collecting. I think that's the fun thing about especially collecting Partridge Family items. It's like, I like to get in there and touch them and take them out. Not that I want to play with them. I'm a little told to play with toys, but you know, you want to touch them and figure out like, oh yeah, I remember this. So this is pretty cool because we can, and it is, I think this one is kind of missing some pieces. Of course, it's been opened, it's been played with, and it's old. You know, it's 1972. I'm recording this in, 2023. So, you know, do the math. It's over 50 years old. Yeah, so it's worn out, but it's still pretty fun. And you can see, like, this is the material, right? Can you imagine, like, that couple who invented Colorforms in the early 50s, actually. They had this kind of glossy material on their bathroom wall, and they figured out, wow, we can actually put this this thin colored vinyl on the wall and create art. And then it, you know, morphed into something really cool. And so back in the day when you opened the Colorforms, this is what you got. And you had a little punch out stand, which hasn't been punched out, surprisingly. You can kind of see it's perforated a little. And then you would put David on that. And you have a little Partridge Family, cartoonish. Him on the stage. It gives a little bit of a psychedelic feel to it. And I like this set too because it actually comes with the booklet. And so we get to look inside the booklet. So let's take a look inside of it. And basically just, you know, this is what I'd wear for one of my concerts. I don't know about that, but it still looks cool. I usually like this outfit for bike riding, okay? So he's got his guitar. This is perfect for knocking around the house. If I go to an outdoor barbecue, I wear this. It's basically the same outfit as this one with a different shirt. He's got his little vest on. And the D is for David, of course. And to the parent. This is pretty cool too. Colorforms toys have a rare educational value. They help your child develop and improve these 6 important skills: finger dexterity, sense of spatial relationship, size matching, building ability, color sense, sense of neatness and order.
Colorforms toys are perfect for the rest hours, rainy days, for long trips, for children in bed, for any situation that calls for quiet, creative activity. Your child will have hours of fun with this new toy. How cool is that? 1972. Very cool. And actually this was helpful because there, as you can see, as we're going to look into this, it's like, what is that? Like when I looked at this to begin with, and these are old, you know, so they're not sticking as great as they should. And like I said, there are missing pieces. But like this at first, I was like, what is this? Oh, that's right. It's the D on David's shirt. So if you're not familiar with Colorforms, like this is exactly what it was. You know, it was basically, you take this shirt basically, and it sticks to this material, which is a high gloss kind of cardboard with kind of a varnish on it. And the same with the character. And it would basically, I haven't cleaned this. It looks kind of dirty. And it would stick, right? So you can dress David. You can put his guitar on him. All right, it's kind of cool. Put some groovy pants on him. And yeah, you got David. Or Keith, Partridge, dancing away. And it was cool. And I actually, you know, I remember having the Barbie set too. And the Barbie set was really cool. I mean, she was perfectly made for something like this because she had all kinds of cool outfits. Batman and Robin, like they had the cool outfits too. Sometimes they were Bruce Wayne, you know, and Batman, and sometimes it was Batman, so it was pretty cool. So that's kind of cool, right? And I mean, I can see how they can kind of say it was educational, but for the most part, it was just fun. Put the D on there for David. I guess this is David and not Keith. But that was Colorforms pretty much, and I think this is a really cool set. There's not too many pieces missing. Yet stars. This is his, what is this, his belt? I don't even know. We'll have to look at the book to figure that out. Like this was a vest. And the only reason I know that was because it shows it in the book. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't know what it is. There you go. Very cool. You know, I could put pockets on his jeans if you want. Can do mix and match, as they say in the old days. And I'm curious to see what that, yeah, I guess it is a belt. Let's take a look at. Oh, there's suspenders. There you go, suspenders. That's why this book comes in handy. It's cool that I have this book because, you know, somebody played with this toy at one time. And I would imagine they, I mean, I don't know about you, but I always misplace these little books. But this is cool to have because now we know these are suspenders. So if we wanted to put some suspenders, let's put a shirt on him. Who knew we were going to play with Colorforms today? Did you know that? We were going to play with color. I was just going to show you the set, but very cool. There you go. Look at that. That's very cool. Yeah. And then, of course, the stars, if you want to put some stars on his pants. And they stick. Can you imagine creating something like this? I mean, as art students, they thought this was super cool, and then they came to a point where they were like, hey, how can we leverage this into something? How can we make this into something, a learning tool? And they did. And then they, of course, partnered with FAO Schwartz and then licensed and everything. Like we said, they came up with all of these great licensing. Was able to cash in on the David Cassidy mania that was going on at the time in 1972, and very cool. So really happy to have this in my collection. Super fun. I'll have to put them away. I have to clean this up pretty soon. This is like kind of dirty here.
So I hope you enjoyed stepping back in time and playing with the David Cassidy dress-up set from Colorforms. Cool story, right? I mean, such a cool story. I never, until I started like kind of doing some research, I didn't even know, first of all, I didn't even know Colorforms was still around still, but they still are. And that art student couple from New York, in New York that invented this, they held on to that brand for so long. And I think it was like the mid 80s, they finally sold it to a toy manufacturer. It's changed hands a few times since then. But like I said, go back. I'll put the link in our show notes so you can, if you want to dig into the Colorforms history. Cool story. A really, really cool story we don't hear very often. And of course, they jumped on the David Cassidy mania bandwagon, and they were able to get the licensing for this. So great. It was great to kind of open it up and to kind of play with the toy a little bit, something we don't normally do. But yeah, so very cool. I love looking at some of this old stuff. And I didn't even know the Colorform story until I kind of broke this out of my closet. I was like, let's do the Colorform set. And then I was like, what happened to Colorforms? They're still going. You could still go into Amazon and buy a Colorform Barbie set if you wanted to, or the old the vintage geometrical set, the learning set, not the original, but they've continued it in manufacturing it and stuff. So very cool story. Cool to take a look inside this box and bring back so many memories. Like, I hope that you really enjoy that. And I get a kick out of it every time I open this up. It brings back so many memories, and I hope it does to you as well. And until next time, we'll have another cool item from my collection. I hope that you enjoy it, and we'll talk to you next time. See you later.